Georgia and this is The Sound of Georgia. And today we're back at long last with another episode of Today in Julie Andrews' History. Do any of you remember a little film that Julie made called Relative Values? I imagine the answer is not many of you. I think I've mentioned it maybe once on here, which is kind of sad because I absolutely love this film. I think it's one of her most underrated movies. I couldn't find too many specifics about it in regards to its success, but it's definitely not one that's remembered all that much, which is, again, sad because it's completely brilliant. But since we don't hear much about it, we're going to be talking about it today because next week it turns 20 years old. Which doesn't that make us all feel old? Makes me feel old. But it came out in the UK on the 23rd of June 2000. It wasn't released in America until October of that year. It's based on the 1951 play of the same name by Noel Coward. It was directed by Eric Stiles and the screenplay was written by Paul Rattigan and Michael Walk. And in addition to Julie, the cast includes Edward Atherton, Jean Tripplehorn, William Baldwin, Colin Firth, and Stephen Fry. That's right, Julie Andrews, Colin Firth, and Stephen Fry in one movie. Can this get any more British? Well, maybe if you added Hugh Grant in there, but this isn't the film Julie made with Hugh Grant. That's a different movie. So the film takes place in the 1950s and it tells the story of this young aristocratic girl who is set to one day inherit his family's estate. But he's been overseas for a while and along the way has seemingly fallen in love with a Hollywood starlet. He brings her back to England to meet his family, where it's revealed that she has a sister, and that sister happens to be one of the family's maids. Shenanigans ensue. As you can imagine from those last two words that I just said, it is completely hilarious. It's so sardonic, poking fun at the English aristocracy and Hollywood, and what should happen if those two were to ever meet. Julie plays the Earl's mother, Felicity, and even though I didn't mention her in the synopsis, she is really a big part. Possibly the biggest since she's involved in just about everything that goes on. This ridiculous and elaborate scheme that she concocts involves just about everyone, but at no point do you hate her. This is what Julie herself had to say about Felicity. I hope there is some empathy for the character, but I just loved her wit. She had this wonderfully subtle, witty sense of humour. And that is so true.
You don't like her, do you, Mother?
Well, of course I don't. I think she's a perfect ass.
She's kind of like Queen Clarice, but a billion times sassier and better. Yeah, I said it, but if you've watched some of my other videos, you probably know that I really don't like Princess Diaries. She made that movie the next year in 2001. And everyone else is just as brilliant. You've got Edward Atherton, Jean Tripplehorn, and Sophie Thompson, who are, respectively, the Earl Nigel, his Hollywood starlet fiancée, Miranda Frail, and her sister and the family's maid, Moxie. And they are much more on the dramatic side of the story. They're not amusing in the way some of the other cast is, but the performances are great, especially Sophie Thompson. It really was a little weird to see Jean Tripplehorn in this role after only knowing her from Criminal Minds. But I think she did really well. Nigel's got a bit of a pole up his arse. But the characters that are on the more amusing side, Julie, Colin Firth as her nephew, Stephen Fry as the butler, and of course, Miranda's old Hollywood boyfriend. They all just play off each other so perfectly, especially Stephen Fry. For me, along with Julie, he steals the show.
Sequestered as we are, sir, in our remote Kentish Vacuum, we're not entirely out of touch with the larger world beyond. We have been privileged, thanks to the silver screen and the various periodicals appertaining to it, to follow your public and private affairs with the keenest interest.
By the end of it, the plot's just gotten so ridiculous and absurd. And every other sentence is so brilliantly witty that it just makes me laugh so much.
This is all highly entertaining, but unless my watch has gone completely Lulu, I'd say their arrival is frighteningly imminent. It's brilliant. Well done, Crespel. I've gone quite giddy with relief.
You can tell this was written by Noel Coward. From what I know of Noel Coward, simply from watching Star, so not a documentary and not even on him, I can tell that this is the sort of thing he wrote. As watching him in that film, I could really get a sense of his character, though in Star he was actually played by his real-life godson. But if you want to know more about Star, I have a whole Julie Andrews history video about it. And as I said at the beginning, I couldn't find all that many specifics. I pretty much gave you all the specs I could, which are really just the release date and the crew. Couldn't really find much more than that. So I don't actually know how successful it was. But given that it seems to be relatively forgotten, it clearly didn't blow up. In a way, it kind of reminds me of two of the movies she made in the early 90s. Kind of in the feel, I guess, but probably just for how much they're remembered. One of those, what's the movie she made with Hugh Grant? It's possibly just because of how remembered, or lack thereof, these films are, rather than the content itself, because they are nothing alike. Neither of them have much in common at all, but out of these three, it is definitely my favourite. And hey, the reason it reminds me of those two might just be because it's British. Well, I can't really recommend this movie to you based on public success, since I can't find a whole lot about that. I would absolutely recommend it. It deserves to be remembered more than it is. And that's everything I've got for you today, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know in the comments, have you seen Relative Values? And if you have, what did you like the most about it? Me, it's definitely Julie and Stephen Fry. I hope you guys are all staying safe. Feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my video next week. So long, farewell!